strolling through Disneyland or the Magic Kingdom, you've undoubtedly noticed the iconic partner statue featuring Walt Disney and Mickey Mouse. And this Disfarers episode is going to outline all of its amazing details. At face value, the partner statue is fairly self-explanatory and not that much of a big whoop. You've got Walt Disney, you've got Mickey, they're holding hands, and Walt is kind of giving a friendly wave/greeting. And yet, despite their prevalent presence over their respective hubs, and being very difficult to miss, outside of catching a fun picture, most don't mosey straight up to gawk at the craftsmanship. Which is unfortunate, because the partner statue totally gets more interesting the more you learn about it. There are two big, very noticeable yet not so known secrets inlaid in this innocuous copper effigy. One is this logo here on Walt's tie. It doesn't look like anything else at Disney. That's because it isn't a Disney thing. The letters STR stand for the Smoke Tree Ranch in Palm Springs, California. A stunning, one-of-a-kind desert ranch, surrounded by natural beauty, cacti, and mountains. That also happens to be a gated community and resort still in operation today, with golf, horseback riding, lawn bowling, which I had to look up what that was because I'm not a lawn bowler. But in any case, Walt frequented the Smoke Tree Ranch as a guest to play polo, which he took up only after his doctor instructed him to take up exercise to relieve his various mountains of stress. Curiously, before stumbling onto polo, he had tried wrestling, golf, and boxing. Which, it's really hard to envision Walt participating in any of these sports. However, he was quite the equestrian, which I never knew until just recently, so polo was a good fit for him. So Walt therefore spent many a holiday and long weekend at the Smoke Tree Ranch. Eventually, he had to sell his Smoke Tree Ranch home in order to fund Disneyland's railroad track along with 2 locomotives, but later came back to build an even larger home. So over the course of his life, he owned 2 homes at the private resort community. The insignia for the Smoke Tree Ranch isn't part of the partner statue as a simple hat tip, but because Walt actually wore the symbol on his ties. You can see it in his promotional Disneyland episodes, as well as in the wonderful world of color. The second obvious secret is the fact that Walt is wearing an extra wedding band on his right hand. It's very easy to miss. This piece of jewelry is known as an Irish claddagh ring. Both Walt and his wife wore these after buying them on a trip to Ireland, where Walt's ancestors originally hailed. Apparently, his great-grandfather Arundel, not Arundel, but Arundel Elias Disney. The Elias, obviously just like Walt's middle name and his father's first name, were from the County Kilkenny and immigrated to the Americas in 1834. So the ring has a familial and loving significance.
Let's not wait until the next family reunion to get together.
There's a lot more to the statue than these very conspicuous secrets, though. The idea to make a Walt and Mickey statue came about as organically as it did out of well-intentioned machinations. In 1984, 22 years after Walt's passing, Michael Eisner took over as CEO of Disney. Disneyland had subsequently surpassed its proverbial heyday, and as a means of drawing in crowds, Eisner started having short-term themed attractions and promotions in the hub in front of Sleeping Beauty Castle. An unfortunate side effect was that the castle was becoming more and more obscured as these Eisner attractions became more and more popular, and larger, and outrageous. Seeing the mounting problem and fearing one of these attraction ideas would become so popular it would become a permanent fixture, forever marring the view of Sleeping Beauty Castle, a pair of legendary Imagineers, Marty Sklar and John Hench, decided there should be something honoring Walt Disney, who at the time seemed to be fading from the public's memory. Sklar and Hench advocated for the partner statue to Eisner as a means of cementing the Disney brand in the park, and Eisner agreed. It was a good idea. I always liked Eisner.
Hello, I'm Michael Eisner, and I'm here with my friend Mickey to introduce the Disney Sunday movie.
And thus, because of its importance and prominent location, an enormous amount of painstaking work, outlining, sketching, and detailing went into the creation of the partner statue. This work was done by another Disney legend, Blaine Gibson, an artist and sculptor of phenomenal skill. Blaine Gibson started up at Disney as an effects animator in 1939. He put his skills to task on Fantasia, Bambi, Song of the South, Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, Sleeping Beauty, and 101 Dalmatians. And he even landed the title of becoming the assistant to the famous animator, the Frank Thomas. not only one of Walt's 9 old men, but one of the absolute best animator heavyweights of all time. But even as an animator, Blaine Gibson continually studied the art of sculpting. This led to his eventual repositioning from animator to a sculptor on the fated Disneyland project. And even if his name doesn't sound familiar, everyone is no doubt already familiar with Blaine's sculpture work. He was the primary sculptor on Disneyland's Pirates of the Caribbean, Haunted Mansion, The Birds in the Tiki Room, Small World, and the famous 64-65 World's Fair's Abraham Lincoln animatronic. Not only that, he sculpted all of the busts in the Hall of Presidents, except for Barack Obama and onward, although he was consulted for the bust of Barack. I can go on, but that's probably enough examples. Blaine was in fact a full decade deep into his comfortable retirement before being asked to make the partner's statue sculpture. Which, of course, he agreed to do to honor Walt's memory, but this wasn't the first time Blaine Gibson had made a sculpture of Walt Disney. In 1962, Blaine made a bust of Walt as a birthday present, which you would think is pretty nice, right? But apparently when Walt saw the piece, he said something along the lines of, "What am I supposed to do with this? Statues are for dead people." So Blaine Gibson kicked a stone or two on his way back home and decided to keep the bust in his garage. Presently, it can be viewed in the lobby of the Walt Disney Family Museum in San Francisco. And if hearing Walt's reaction gives you any pause, it's really worth noting that Gibson admitted that this statue wasn't really his best, even at that time. And to keep things in perspective, this was 30 years before the partner statue was even a thought, and I feel Walt's critical view of Blaine's not-so-up-to-par bust inspired the 75-year-old artist to do his absolute best with this second chance. Furthermore, Walt Disney stated he absolutely did not want a statue of himself in his parks. And though I couldn't find any exacting details, I know, given his views, that it took some convincing for his family to agree to have a Walt Disney statue placed. How this prickly obstacle was overcome is only known to those involved, I suppose. Blaine Gibson put together several designs for the statue. One was of Mickey holding an ice cream in one hand and holding Walt's hand with the other. Another was of Walt with blueprints of Epcot, pointing in some general direction. Yet another was of Walt waving with Mickey, who was holding a small globe. But ultimately, Marty Sklar, John Hench, and Disneyland president Jack Lindquist decided on the design Disney park goers all enjoy today. And just so there's no miscommunication, that design belonged to Blaine Gibson, obviously. The partner statue took an entire year of Blaine's life to complete, putting all of his years and artistic expertise to the task in honoring Walt Disney. There's a lot of nuance in the statue for the sake of rousing emotions rather than adhering strictly to realism. For instance, the statue depicts Walt Disney as slightly larger than life. The statue has him standing at a resplendent 6 foot 5 inches, when in reality the man was about 5 foot 10. Gibson personally felt Walt had very dark features, and therefore added deep grooves, particularly in Walt's eyes, hair, and brow line. It's said that one of the reasons it took Blaine an entire year to make the statue was because he worked so hard on getting Walt's expression exactly right. His goal for the expression on Walt's face was of him watching people enjoy his park. There's a personal joy in his features that implies he's not just happy with the park, but rather it's happiness in seeing others enjoy the place, a subtle yet powerful significance. The hand raised is not just a wave hello, but additionally a greeting with a relaxed movement indicating familiarity, an actual physical trait Walt possessed that resonated perfectly in the statue. Blaine also used a younger 1954 version of Walt when Blaine believed the man was at his prime, aged and wizened, yet still highly energized. It's not only the most iconic age of Walt's life, but it's also when he was on TV the most, and from a time people most remembered him by.
Since the beginning of mankind, the fable tellers have not only given us entertainment, but a kind of wisdom, humor, and understanding that, like all true art, remains imperishable through the ages.
Mickey presented his own set of problems for Blaine. It may sound silly now that the statue's been around for so long, but it was nevertheless quite tricky for Blaine to figure out just how tall Mickey should be. There was a conversation Walt had with Frank Thomas while working on The Pointer, which was a Mickey Mouse cartoon. And again, Frank Thomas was an awesome animator Blaine was the assistant to. Anyway, during this conversation, Walt put his hand out to show exactly how tall Mickey was, which was about 3 feet in height. But again, the Walt statue was much taller than the actual man was, and you don't want to see Walt leaning over to one side all cattywampus. But Blaine Gibson utterly nailed it. He really did. The joined hands between Walt and Mickey was a struggle though, particularly in the design phase, given that one character has only 4 fingers and is fictional. So Blaine used a scene from Fantasia where Mickey is shaking hands with composer Leopold Stokowski as a reference. And since Fantasia had Walt's seal of approval, that seemed like a safe way to go. Overall, there's a fantastic balance to the partner statue. Both of the figures are grounded, with neither being the ringleader, so to speak. A lot of artists could have easily screwed this up in some way, but the fact that Blaine Gibson personally knew Walt, had such a long-standing history working at Disney, was the head of its modeling department for so long, and so understood the glorified public version of Walt that he portrayed that, really, Blaine had just the right necessary edge and captured Walt's likeness exquisitely. His years as an animator and assistant also gave him the necessary edge for capturing Mickey. So really, there's no one more perfect to have created the partner statue, and there's no one living today who could have done an equal or better job. It's very fortunate to all Disney fans that Blaine Gibson took on the responsibility when he didn't have to. And he did such a fantastic job that it fits perfectly in the parks, as though the statue had always been designed to be there. Blaine Gibson went on to rightly earn the esteemed honor of becoming a Disney legend on November 18, 1993, which was consequently the year the partner statue was unveiled, as well as Mickey's 65th birthday. Which, by the way, Mickey's B-Day is actually the date Steamboat Willie premiered, not when Mickey was first drawn. And that is the not at all so sordid story of the partner statue. 2 years after Disneyland got the original partner statue, they placed another one over at the Magic Kingdom. 3 other partner statues were made thereafter, placed at Tokyo Disneyland, Disney Studios Paris, and another at corporate Disney headquarters in Burbank. So there's 5 in total, each colored slightly differently to match the ambience of its surrounding environment. The plaque on the original partner statue in Disneyland has a quote from Walt stating, "I think most of all, what I want Disneyland to be is a happy place, where parents and children can have fun together." Which is a great quote. It really captures Walt's initial idea for the park. I mean, Disney parks have since become more than just a place for parents and children. It has tons of different meanings to people. But I like the classic quote. It's perfect. The partner statue is a fixture in Disneyland and the Magic Kingdom, a reminder of the man and character that started it all. The reason you're standing in either park is because of the success of both of them. And even though Walt didn't want a statue of himself done, let alone in any of his parks, I feel his family made the correct decision in allowing the Disney company to make the partner statue. It's fitting, both to the parks and history of their locations. Blaine Gibson said it better than anyone else could. Walt gave me and many others some of the happiest times of our lives, and this project was important because it wasn't just for Walt, it was about Walt. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Disfarers out.